So Prince William just quietly staged a ruthless institutional purge inside Buckingham Palace, stripping Queen Camilla of her top staff, cutting her official diary and blocking her access to state intelligence briefings. And the immediate consequence is that Camilla's private power network across the royal household has completely collapsed, following an exposed luxury superyacht scandal off the French coast. And honestly, this is way darker than an undeclared summer vacation, because William just used a single maritime filing to permanently lock his stepmother out of the future of the British monarchy. Before we get into all of it, make sure you hit subscribe to the new royal network real quick so you do not miss what happens next. We break down the real palace power shifts every single week. All right, let us start where the story actually begins. And here is the part that actually gets crazy. The entire scandal did not blow up because of a palace whistleblower stepping out of a dimly lit corridor in London. It did not break because an undercover investigative reporter spent 6 months following private limousines around Mayfair. It unravelled because of a routine maritime insurance registry update, extraordinarily boring technical shipping filing that exists purely for international vessel compliance and that almost nobody on earth reads unless it is their actual corporate job. To understand how a single, dull piece of maritime paperwork set off a chain reaction that is now reshaping the British monarchy in real time, you have to look at the timeline of late July 2025. Picture the stark contrast, because the contrast is the whole story. In late July 2025, Prince William and Princess Catherine were grinding through an extraordinarily demanding schedule of official public duties across the United Kingdom. We are talking about back-to-back unglamorous vital work, visiting a children's health facility in Birmingham, attending veteran support initiatives near Edinburgh, and walking through rain-slicked community centres to keep the public connected to the crown. It was the heavy, steady work that keeps the monarchy relevant in modern Britain. At that exact same moment, Queen Camilla was aboard a 300-foot luxury super yacht named the Esperanza. 3 anchored in crystal clear waters off the southern coast of France near Saint-Tropez. Now, this was not a royal vessel. It was not chartered by the sovereign grant. It carried no official staff list from the Lord Chamberlain's office, and there was zero mention of it in the court circular. The court circular, if you do not know, is the official historical record of royal engagements established under King George III, all the way back in 1783. Every official meeting, every diplomatic reception, every public appearance made by a working royal is logged in that document, every 24 hours to ensure absolute transparency with Parliament and the public. If a senior working royal attends an event and it does not appear in the court circular, it means one of 2 things. Either an unprecedented administrative failure occurred, or somebody made a deliberate conscious choice to keep the journey off the books. Camilla's 5-day Mediterranean cruise on the Esperanza 3 was completely absent from the court circular. It was missing from the Palace Press Office's public schedule, and it was entirely omitted from the annual Royal Financial Transparency records. The super yacht Esperanza 3 was registered under a flag of convenience in Malta, owned through a complex corporate holding structure in Luxembourg named Verlaine Capital Partners, and controlled by a Swiss-based financier whose commercial network had been actively lobbying European regulatory bodies over heritage, property development laws, and land use statutes. Think about how strange that is for a second. This is an institution that meticulously records the exact minute a monarch steps into a car. The complete absence of a record was not an oversight by a junior secretary. An absence that absolute was a calculated decision. Somebody inside Clarence House kept this trip hidden on purpose. And here is how that quiet decision exploded. A corporate maritime database updated its public tracking logs on a Tuesday afternoon, placing the Esperanza 3 at a specific private marina near Cannes on July 24, 2025. A royal research specialist cross-referencing shipping data for an unrelated commercial report noticed the entry. That same researcher then spotted a private social media post, a casual background photograph uploaded by a guest attending a dinner on the yacht's upper deck. In the background of that photograph, sitting at a candlelit table, surrounded by international property investors, was Queen Camilla. The photo was deleted within 48 hours, but the digital footprint was already locked. By the first week of August 2025, the image and the shipping logs were sitting on the desk of Prince William at Kensington Palace. And when William looked at the guest list aboard that vessel, he realised this was not just a lapse in PR judgment. It was an existential threat to the credibility of his future reign. The public had no idea she was even on that boat. But the moment that maritime record lined up with that deleted photo, it set off the biggest internal palace war in 30 years. Now here is what makes this even more significant. To understand why a 5-day yacht trip turned into a full-scale institutional purge, you have to stop looking at it as a luxury vacation and start understanding how royal corruption protocols actually operate under modern British law. We are not talking about bad etiquette here. We are not talking about a queen consort taking a well-deserved break in the sun. In plain English, accepting high-end, undisclosed hospitality from private commercial figures is the single most dangerous landmine a modern monarchy can step on. To see why Prince William reacted with such cold, terrifying speed, you have to go back 18 months prior to early 2024. Following the catastrophic fallout of the Prince Andrew financial and reputation scandals, which cost the royal family tens of millions of pounds in legal settlements and permanently ruined the Duke of York's public life, Prince William personally spearheaded a massive internal governance overhaul inside the palace. William worked alongside Sir Jonathan Arborfield, the Duchy of Cornwall's senior legal counsel, to draft a binding written policy document titled The Sovereign Integrity and Ethics Charter of 2024. This document was not a set of polite guidelines. It was a mandatory institutional directive issued to every single royal household: Buckingham Palace, Kensington Palace and Clarence House. The charter contained 3 absolute rules. Rule 1.0: acceptance of private corporate travel or residential hospitality from any individual or entity holding active commercial applications before UK government bodies or local planning authorities. Rule 2: mandatory immediate registration of any gift or travel valued above £500 in the Central Royal Compliance Ledger within 48 hours. Rule 3: total prohibition of off-the-record meetings with foreign financial figures without an official private secretary present. That written policy document was printed, bound and delivered directly to Queen Camilla's private secretary at Clarence House in March 2024. Camilla had that exact document sitting in her own office, and 16 months later, she stepped straight over every single rule written inside it. Stop and think about what that actually means. This was not a senior royal who was confused by complicated legal jargon. This was a woman who possessed the updated compliance rules in her own building and chose to board a private super yacht anyway. Let us look at who was sitting around that dinner table on the Esperanza III with the Queen Consort of the United Kingdom. First, there was a high-profile British property developer who had active, highly controversial planning applications submitted in the West Country, specifically regarding commercial building rights, near historic royal estate boundaries. Second, there was a senior European media executive whose parent company was actively bidding for state-backed broadcasting rights in Britain. And third, there were 2 international financial consultants whose names had surfaced in a 2023 European Union transparency inquiry regarding offshore tax structures and foreign influence in UK real estate. None of these individuals were close, lifelong personal friends of the royal family. None of them were there in an official diplomatic capacity. They were commercial figures with active financial interests that touched the British state and the royal estate network. And for 5 days away from press officers, away from official minute takers, and away from public scrutiny, they enjoyed direct, private, unrecorded access to the woman sitting beside the King of the United Kingdom. In the royal world, appearance is substance. The moment it looks like access to the crown can be bought with a week on a luxury yacht. The integrity of the institution is completely compromised. Whether or not Queen Camilla ever promised a single commercial favour does not matter. The mere existence of that unrecorded gathering shattered the core promise William had made to the British public. And when that confidential dossier landed on William's desk at Kensington Palace, he knew that if he did not destroy this network immediately, the scandal would swallow his own future reign whole. But to truly understand why Prince William reacted with such uncompromising clinical force, you have to go back to the private history that the palace has spent nearly 30 years trying to sanitize. You have to go back to August 31st, 1997. Most people remember the public drama of that era. The 1996 divorce between Charles and Diana, the tragic crash in Paris, and the massive sea of flowers outside Kensington Palace. But what most people forget is the specific informal institutional machinery that a 15-year-old Prince William watched destroy his mother. William was not just a grieving child in 1997. He was an observant young boy living inside palace walls, watching how courtiers operated. He saw how an informal, off-the-record network of advisors, media strategists, and private influencers operated behind closed doors. He watched as palace insiders executed Operation Parker Bowles, starting in 1999. A multi-year quiet public relations campaign designed to rehabilitate Camilla's image, slide her into official roles, and gradually rewrite history. William watched as informal understandings, unminuted meetings, and quiet favours were used by palace factions to isolate his mother, strip her of her official standing, and manipulate the media narrative. He saw that when a royal household operates on informal arrangements, rather than strict, transparent rules, vulnerable people get destroyed, and unaccountable figures gain immense power. As a teenager, William made a quiet, unyielding vow the moment he held legal and financial authority within the monarchy. He would completely systematically dismantle the informal courtier culture that had enabled his mother's destruction. When Queen Elizabeth II passed away on September 8, 2022, William instantly inherited the Duchy of Cornwall, a massive £1.2 billion private estate generating approximately £30 million in pure liquid cash every single year. The Duchy spans over 135,000 acres across 23 counties in England and Wales, including residential developments, commercial real estate in London, and vast agricultural land. For 53 years, Charles had run the Duchy like a personal feudal kingdom, using its revenues to support private projects and fund the personal staff and lifestyle of Camilla's inner circle. The absolute second William took control of the Duchy in late 2022. He executed a silent corporate revolution. He brought in corporate auditors, replaced legacy estate managers, and terminated every single arrangement that ran on personal trust, rather than written arm's-length contracts. In early 2024, William famously removed Annabel Elliot, Queen Camilla's younger sister, from the Duchy payroll. For nearly 20 years, Annabel Elliot had been paid tens of thousands of pounds annually from Duchy funds as a lead interior design consultant for royal holiday cottages and estate offices. William did not throw a public tantrum. He simply reviewed the procurement contracts, noted the obvious conflict of interest, and quietly erased her name from the payroll books forever. So when Prince William looked at the investigative dossier regarding Camilla's July 2025 superyacht cruise, he did not see an isolated holiday mistake. He saw the exact same informal off-the-record courtier machinery that had operated in the 1990s, trying to re-establish itself inside his father's reign. He saw Camilla using her position to enjoy unrecorded luxury access, provided by foreign financiers, surrounded by advisors, who believed they were entirely above the rules. William had spent 28 years waiting for the structural authority to crush that culture. He was no longer a helpless 15-year-old boy weeping at Balmoral. He was the Duke of Cornwall, controlling a £1.2 billion empire, possessing absolute financial independence, and holding the future of the crown in his hands. And that is why, when the tip-off arrived at Kensington Palace, William did not call a family conference. He prepared for a quiet, lethal institutional execution. And this is the detail that stopped me cold when I first read about it, because it shows you how deep the roots of this operation actually ran. You have to look at the exact financial network that Queen Camilla's private team had been leaning on in complete secrecy. The super yacht Esperanza III was not just a boat owned by a wealthy acquaintance. The vessel was registered under Verlaine Capital Partners, a Luxembourg-based holding company that held extensive investment portfolios in UK commercial property, luxury heritage developments, and agricultural land trusts. Over the preceding 3 years, Verlaine Capital Partners had been quietly manoeuvring to secure favourable planning approvals for a massive multi-million-pound commercial heritage project in Somerset. This project involved developing historical land adjacent to protected estate boundaries, an arena where official endorsements or subtle non-objections from royal preservation bodies carry staggering financial weight. To make the scheme work without triggering public alarm, Camilla's private team executed a multi-layered strategy designed to keep her relationship with the Luxembourg financiers entirely invisible. First, they ensured that all travel arrangements were handled directly between Camilla's private personal secretary and the Swiss financier's executive office, completely bypassing the central royal travel office at Buckingham Palace. By using private charter flights to fly Camilla directly from a small airfield in Gloucestershire to a private apron in Nice, France, they avoided the standard manifest logs filed by official royal protection details. Second, they structured her stay aboard the Esperanza III as a private personal rest period under Legacy Palace definitions. A royal on a private holiday was not required to publish daily entries in the court circular. Camilla's team exploited this old loophole, assuming that as long as no official press photographers were invited, the trip would remain an unrecorded summer break between close friends. And third, here is the detail that reveals the sheer audacity of the operation. Camilla's team had quietly accepted hospitality from this exact same financial network before. Investigations later confirmed that in August 2023, just 3 months after King Charles's coronation, Camilla had taken an identical unrecorded 3-day weekend trip aboard the Esperanza, 3 off the coast of Italy. That earlier trip had been quietly spotted by a junior official in the Lord Chamberlain's office who raised a private inquiry. But because Charles's reign was in its honeymoon phase and palace aides were desperate to avoid public friction, the inquiry was quietly swept under the rug and buried in a private file. Camilla's team concluded from that 2023 silence that they had found a permanent blind spot in palace oversight. They believed that because Camilla was queen consort, nobody inside the household would ever dare challenge her private holiday arrangements or demand to inspect her travel logs. They spent 2 years building a cozy, unrecorded relationship, with foreign financiers enjoying luxury Mediterranean cruises, while those same financiers funneled corporate donations into trusts connected to Camilla's personal patronages. It was a clever, deeply entrenched arrangement. But Camilla's team made one fatal miscalculation. They assumed that the old passive oversight mechanisms of the late Queen's final years were still in charge of the monarchy. They completely failed to realise that the security and governance apparatus had been quietly taken over by a Prince of Wales who monitored every financial paper trail in the building. And what Camilla's team never saw coming was that someone deep inside their own circle, someone who recognised that William was the real centre of institutional power, was actively copying every single document and sending it straight to Kensington Palace. Okay, so here is the part that actually changes everything. This is the pivot chapter where the whole story shifts from a quiet investigation into an active, aggressive institutional showdown. On the first Tuesday of September 2025, at exactly 9:30 in the morning, Prince William called an emergency governance meeting inside his private study at Kensington Palace. This was not held at Buckingham Palace. It was not held on King Charles's neutral territory. William deliberately chose his own headquarters to establish complete physical and operational command over the proceedings. Present in the room were William's private secretary, his head of communications, Sir Jonathan Arborfield, and a senior official from King Charles's private office who had been explicitly ordered to attend by the Prince of Wales. William did not start the meeting with polite small talk. He sat at the head of a long mahogany table, reached down beside his chair, and placed a thick physical leather-bound folder flat on the table. Inside that folder was not a collection of newspaper clippings or internet rumours. It was an ironclad dated investigative dossier containing 4 specific documents. Document 1, Certified Maritime Port Registry Logs from Malta, proving the Esperanza III's movements in July 2025 and August 2023. Document 2, Corporate Registry Filings from Luxembourg detailing the exact ownership board of Verlaine Capital Partners. Document 3, Bank Statements, showing a £40,000 corporate donation made by an entity linked to Verlaine Capital Partners directly into a charity trust, where Camilla served as royal patron, dated just 4 weeks before her July 2025 cruise. And Document 4, the single piece of paper that changed the entire picture from a bad decision into an active cover-up. Document 4 was a copy of an unminuted internal meeting log, showing that 6 weeks prior to the French cruise, a senior representative from Verlaine Capital Partners had held a private unrecorded 90-minute meeting at a private London club with a high-ranking member of Queen Camilla's personal patronage advisory board. The subject of that meeting, the commercial planning application for the historic land development in Somerset. Let that detail sink in. A foreign corporate entity seeking planning approvals on historic land met privately, with Camilla's board member donated £40,000 to a trust connected to her, and then hosted the Queen consort on a private superyacht for 5 days off the coast of France. The host signals the devastating nature of this revelation. Okay, so here is the part that actually changes everything. What William laid out on that table was not a story about a queen taking a sunny vacation. He laid out a complete documented chronological paper trail of corporate lobbying, secret financial transactions, and unrecorded royal access. The senior official from the king's household sat in absolute stunned silence. His face went completely pale. He tried to offer a weak diplomatic defence, suggesting that Queen Camilla may have been completely unaware of the Luxembourg company's commercial applications in Somerset. William looked at the official with cold, flat authority and asked one simple, terrifying question. Did my father know about any of this? The official hesitated for 3 agonising seconds. He admitted that King Charles had been told about the July trip, but only as a casual personal update that Camilla was taking a short break with personal friends in France. Charles had never been given the owner's name, had never been shown the Luxembourg corporate connections, and had zero knowledge of the £40,000 donation or the Somerset planning application. William closed the leather folder with a heavy thud. He looked at his team and declared that the palace oversight system had failed catastrophically. He stated plainly that the choice facing the monarchy was simple. Either they destroyed this corrupt network internally right now, or the press would discover it 6 months later and destroy the reign of King Charles III. William picked up the folder, stood up from the table, and gave the king's official a strict 72-hour deadline. Inform the king that I am coming to see him on Thursday. This is where Prince William acts with a speed and decisiveness that proves who actually holds operational power inside the House of Windsor. On Thursday afternoon, Prince William arrived at Buckingham Palace for a private one-on-one confrontation with King Charles. King Charles was sitting in his private study, looking physically frail and visibly exhausted from his ongoing cancer treatments, which had been taking a heavy toll on his stamina since February 2024. Charles loved his wife deeply. He had spent 30 years defending Camilla against public hostility, family skepticism, and media attacks. He wanted desperately to protect her from another public scandal. Charles tried to de-escalate the situation. He told William that Camilla had given him her personal word that the yacht trip was entirely innocent, that no commercial matters were ever discussed on board, and that launching a formal internal investigation would only create leaks and embarrass the crown. William listened to his father with quiet respect, but he did not yield an inch. He opened the leather folder, laid the financial documents on the king's desk, and delivered a low, flat sentence. Her personal word does not match the paper trail. Think about the staggering institutional weight of that moment. An heir to the throne telling his father, the reigning king, that a personal assurance from the Queen Consort was completely contradicted by corporate evidence. William presented Charles with 3 non-negotiable demands. First, an immediate full written disclosure of all travel logs and financial connections between Clarence House and Verlaine Capital Partners, to be delivered to Sir Jonathan Arberfield within 7 days. Second, a complete independent audit of all charities and patronages associated with Queen Camilla. And third, the absolute immediate termination of all contact between Camilla's household and the Swiss financiers network. Charles tried to ask for more time, suggesting a quiet, informal review managed by Clarence House lawyers. William looked his father in the eye and gave him a choice that left the king completely paralysed. Either you order this audit today, or the Duchy of Cornwall will launch its own independent financial audit of every shared estate property tomorrow morning. That was the nuclear option. If the Duchy of Cornwall launched an independent audit, it would mean William's corporate lawyers entering Clarence House, seizing financial ledgers, and inspecting every vendor contract signed over the last 20 years. Charles realised in an instant that he had zero leverage left. He was physically exhausted, his health was fragile, and his son held every single financial document in the building. Charles bowed his head, placed his hands on his desk, and quietly surrendered. On Friday morning, Clarence House submitted a partial, highly evasive written statement attempting to downplay the Somerset planning connection. Within 2 hours, Prince William's private secretary issued a formal written rejection notice straight back to Clarence House, an unprecedented administrative move in modern royal history, where an heir's office officially rejected a document submitted by the Queen Consort's office. William did not wait for a second draft. He activated his legal team, took control of the internal compliance review, and initiated a systematic quiet purge of Camilla's operational authority. No press release was issued. No public statement was made. Just an heir quietly using institutional leverage to shut down his stepmother's power base forever. And here is the thing about how real royal power operates. Nobody made an angry speech on television. Nobody issued a dramatic press release confirming a family feud. But on Friday, September 12, 2025, a single public image communicated the entire power shift to the world without anyone saying a single word. The occasion was a high-profile international film premiere held at the Leicester Square Theatre in London, a major state-level red carpet event that had been listed on the official royal calendar for over 5 months. Queen Camilla had been listed as the co-lead guest alongside King Charles on every single press itinerary distributed to international media outlets up until 48 hours before the event. The red carpet had been constructed, studio lighting rigs were in place, and thousands of spectators were lined up along the barriers, expecting to see the King and Queen Consort arrive together in the Royal State Bentley. At 7 o'clock on Friday evening, the State Bentley pulled up to the red carpet. The door was opened by a royal footman. King Charles stepped out of the vehicle entirely alone. He wore a formal black dinner suit, looking visibly tired, waving gently to the crowds as he walked down the red carpet, accompanied only by a private secretary and a single equerry. Queen Camilla was nowhere to be seen. Within 10 minutes of Charles stepping onto the carpet, the palace press office issued a rushed one-line statement to royal correspondents claiming that the Queen Consort was unable to attend due to a minor last-minute scheduling conflict and mild fatigue. To an outsider watching the evening news, it sounded like a totally unremarkable routine. Absence the kind of minor adjustment that happens when a senior royal in her late 70s decides to take a quiet evening off. But to everyone inside the royal household, that solo red carpet walk was a seismic, terrifying public signal. In the rigid, highly symbolic visual language of the British monarchy, a queen consort being abruptly pulled from a major pre-announced state appearance alongside the king is the ultimate mark of institutional quarantine. It was the visual confirmation that Camilla's public schedule was no longer being managed by her own private office. Prince William had officially taken control of the master of the household's calendar, while King Charles was walking the red carpet alone in Leicester Square under the flashing cameras of the global media. Something extraordinary was happening behind the locked oak doors of Clarence House, 3 miles away. Sir Jonathan Arborfield and 2 senior compliance officers from the Duchy of Cornwall were sitting in the main administrative office on the ground floor of Clarence House. They were systematically reviewing event schedules, vendor lists, and patronage, guest manifests, cross-referencing every single name against the Luxembourg holding company's corporate network. Queen Camilla was upstairs in her private quarters, completely isolated from the event in Leicester Square, watching television news coverage of her husband walking the red carpet without her. She had spent 30 years fighting to stand beside Charles on those exact red carpets. She had endured decades of public hostility, media abuse, and royal skepticism to secure her place at the centre of the crown. And in a single evening, without a single word of public explanation, she was forced to watch her husband step into the spotlight alone, while her stepson's lawyers audited her office downstairs. The public saw a solo king smiling for the cameras, but the entire House of Windsor knew that the Queen consort had just been officially stripped of her public immunity. And Camilla's private team went into full damage control mode, but it completely fell apart, because you cannot spin a financial paper trail that is sitting in an heirs safe. The internal collapse of Queen Camilla's operational authority across September and October 2025 was swift, clinical, and utterly devastating. Following the solo red carpet appearance in Leicester Square, Camilla's private communications team placed frantic confidential calls to senior editors at trusted royal publications, attempting to float subtle stories that the Queen consort was intentionally stepping back from strenuous evening engagements to focus on supporting the King's health. They tried to frame her shrinking public calendar as an act of selfless, loving devotion to her husband. But the spin strategy collapsed instantly, because Prince William had already locked down the scheduling office. When Clarence House submitted Camilla's drafted autumn engagement calendar, which included 14 major solo appearances between October and December 2025, William personally reviewed the list and executed an administrative cut. 6 of her most high-profile solo engagements were abruptly stripped from her schedule: the opening of a major medical facility in Cardiff, a keynote address at a women's literary initiative in London, and 2 prestigious international charity galas were quietly cancelled or reassigned. And where did those high-profile engagements go? They were handed directly to Princess Catherine. Within 1 week of the reassignments, Catherine's private office confirmed her attendance at the Edinburgh Women's Leadership Conference, an event that Camilla had spent 6 months preparing to lead. Catherine stepped smoothly into the spotlight, looking radiant, poised, and completely commanding, receiving overwhelming public praise across international media. The visual contrast was absolute. While Catherine effortlessly commanded global headlines, Camilla's public diary shrank to a handful of minor low-key private receptions held behind closed palace doors. Then came the operational purge of her private staff. In early October 2025, under the direct authority of a palace efficiency and compliance review signed by William Sr., members of Camilla's core team were systematically removed. Her deputy private secretary and her senior media advisor, the 2 individuals who had managed her private travel arrangements for the France cruise, were quietly informed that their roles were being restructured. Both were offered secondary administrative positions in regional estate offices far outside London. Neither was replaced. By early November 2025, Queen Camilla's dedicated household staff had been slashed from 11 full-time officers down to just 7. And then came the most devastating blow of all. Her access to high-level state intelligence briefings was permanently terminated. Since the coronation in May 2023, Camilla had been included on the private distribution list for daily royal briefing folders, documents containing confidential updates on foreign policy, domestic political developments, and internal crown governance. In mid-October 2025, her name was quietly removed from the distribution list by order of the Prince's private office. She was placed on a strict need-to-know basis, effectively cut off from the internal intelligence loop of the monarchy. Think about the profound humiliation this represented for Camilla. Her dedicated staff was gutted, her public calendar was stripped. Her flagship patronages were handed to Catherine, and she was locked out of internal palace communications. Sitting in her private study at Clarence House late that autumn, Queen Camilla was forced to confront the cold, terrifying reality of her position. Her title as Queen Consort gave her symbolic prestige, but it gave her zero operational power against a Prince of Wales, who held the checkbook, the legal team, and the future of the crown. Her 30-year effort to build an untouchable power base inside the palace had completely collapsed in less than 8 weeks. And then in late October 2025, Prince William delivered the last irreversible closure that permanently locked the door on Camilla's network forever. The setting was Highgrove House, the historic private estate in Gloucestershire that King Charles had owned for over 40 years. Highgrove had always been Charles's personal sanctuary, the place where he spent his weekends, gardening, hosting private dinners, and relaxing away from official palace duties. Historically, Highgrove was Camilla's domain, the house where she hosted her own family and held total social authority. On the last weekend of October 2025, a high-level private strategy retreat was convened at Highgrove. Present at Highgrove for the entire weekend were King Charles, Prince William, and Princess Catherine, accompanied by senior estate trustees and Duchy legal representatives. Together, they spent 48 hours reviewing long-term Crown estate management, future, royal scheduling, and succession governance. Queen Camilla was explicitly not present at Highgrove. She remained alone at Clarence House in London, completely excluded from the strategic weekend retreat. During that weekend at Highgrove, King Charles, physically frail and profoundly weary from his ongoing medical battles, officially signed an executive governance directive titled the Sovereign Oversight and Compliance Protocol of 2025. This binding document formally transferred all administrative and financial oversight regarding royal travel, private hospitality, disclosures, and patronage vetting directly to a joint committee headed personally by the Prince of Wales and the Duchy Legal Council. Think about what that legal document accomplished. With a single stroke of his pen, King Charles officially stripped Queen Camilla and any future royal spouse of the ability to arrange private travel, accept foreign hospitality, or manage patronage donations independently. He placed the entire administrative governance of the royal family under William's direct personal veto power. Charles did not sign the document out of anger toward his wife. He signed it because he was an exhausted 76-year-old monarch, battling cancer, who realised that his son was the only person capable of protecting the institution from total reputational ruin. Charles surrendered administrative control because he simply had zero energy left to fight. 2 weeks later, in mid-November 2025, Prince William delivered a private speech to a gathered group of senior civil servants and estate directors at a closed-door leadership summit in London. No press cameras were allowed inside the room. No official transcript was released to the media. But 2 senior attendees later confirmed the exact 15-word verdict that William delivered to the room regarding institutional governance. Institutions that protect favoured individuals at the expense of their own integrity do not survive. That was the final spoken verdict. No names were mentioned, but every single person in that room knew exactly who he was talking about. The war was over. No public statement was ever issued by Buckingham Palace. No official announcement was ever broadcast on news networks. Just a signed executive protocol, locked inside an estate safe at Highgrove, a rewritten travel compliance ledger, and a Queen Consort sitting in an empty office with a shortened diary and a skeleton staff. Done. When you step back and look at the entire chain of events that unfolded across 2025, what you actually see is something so much more profound than just a dispute over a super yacht vacation. This was a massive 30-year generational reckoning. Look at what Queen Camilla attempted to do over 2 decades. She spent 30 years executing a careful, methodical rehabilitation campaign, moving from the most hated woman in Britain, following Princess Diana's death, to Queen Consort sitting beside the King at Westminster Abbey. She operated under the old 19th century courtier assumption that proximity to the monarch grants ultimate immunity, that as long as King Charles was on the throne, her private arrangements, her corporate connections, and her unrecorded luxury travel would never be questioned by anyone inside the building. She completely miscalculated the Prince of Wales. Prince William is no longer the 15-year-old boy who stood helplessly in Kensington Palace in August 1997, watching informal palace networks isolate and edit his mother, Princess Diana. He is a mature 43-year-old Prince of Wales who controls a £1.2 billion duchy Empire commands total loyalty from the legal and compliance teams and understands every single PR trick in the palace playbook. When William discovered that Camilla had accepted secret superyacht hospitality from foreign property financiers, he did not engage in petty media wars. He used precision corporate audits, binding legal protocols, and absolute financial leverage to dismantle her private power base in broad daylight. William proved a fundamental permanent truth to the entire royal establishment. The future of the British monarchy will not be traded for corporate favours or private luxury. By taking total, uncompromising control over royal governance, William sent a deafening message to every courtier, every donor, and every member of the royal family. As long as he stands as the heir and future king, no informal cliques, no off-the-record access, and no secret corporate deals will ever be tolerated again. The power dynamic inside the House of Windsor has permanently shifted. Queen Camilla still wears her crown, she still attends official state dinners, and she still stands beside King Charles on the balcony of Buckingham Palace. But inside the rooms where power actually lives, her operational influence is completely, totally dead. Her diary is managed by Catherine. Her staff is controlled by William, and her private networks have been systematically erased. She stands in the historic halls of Clarence House, knowing that every schedule, every travel log, and every financial ledger is guarded by a stepson who remembers everything he witnessed as a child, and who holds absolute authority over the future of the crown. She still wears the crown, and she still stands beside the king on the balcony, but inside the rooms where power actually lives, the boy who walked behind Diana's coffin has already closed the door.